Denny Butler is on the phone, and Denny, you of course called yesterday and has been sort of working with the UK football players, and he said he would call today when he was able to talk more about what he found. Denny, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Glad to be on.
All right, so let's talk about, you did an investigation. You've sort of looked into the incident in March, and what have you found about what occurred that night at the fraternity party?
Well, I think I need to clear that up. When you say an investigation, I didn't do an investigation. What I was called in to help over concern for one of the players, Mr. Tisdale, and that the allegation of him having a gun, and the coach that had called me felt like he was telling the truth, and they didn't know where to turn, and they just saw that the stories weren't adding up. And when he called me, and I asked if he would be willing to talk to me, and we went and had a conversation, and I too felt like Mr. Tisdale was telling the truth, and so he agreed to take a polygraph on Saturday, and took one from a retired FBI agent, and he passed the polygraph confirming he didn't have a gun.
Okay, so you're saying Vito Tisdale took a polygraph Saturday, said he didn't have a gun, and he passed that polygraph.
That's correct.
Now, let me ask you, as somebody, we hear about polygraph tests, and when I was in law school, we would study those, and they're not, they're reliable to some extent, but maybe not 100%. Like, how reliable do you think that polygraph test is?
I'm confident he didn't have a gun.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
What other information, if you didn't do the investigation, or just in terms of what you've heard, et cetera, what you think on the defense side, what happened that night? I've been saying there had to be something that happened that started this fight. Do you have any notion of what that is?
Right. So when he passed the polygraph, obviously I wanted to talk to some of the other players and figure out what the story was. And it appears that there was a fraternity party, a lot of alcohol involved, words were exchanged, and then a fist fight broke out, and the party ended. And so in talking to the players, all of them confirmed that they didn't have a gun, they didn't see a gun, and so, Mr. Tisdale does not have an attorney. And so, I was sitting there trying to think, how do we get him an attorney? So we launched a GoFundMe page 8 minutes ago, and I would ask people to go to it. It's Defense Fund for 6 innocent UK football players, and the funds will be used to hire them attorneys, and any remaining funds will go to the Chris Oates GoFundMe page.
So you're saying all the money raised will go, is it just for Tisdale's or all 6 of their attorney?
Well, obviously Mr. Tisdale needs an attorney, so any monies that come in, he's going to be first and foremost to get one, and then, the monies are going to go to pay for the attorneys. The story doesn't add up, and with my experience, and background of doing investigations for 3 decades and working with wrongful conviction cases, it's one of these things. Do you stand by and let these guys let the system play out and get convicted, and then try to get involved, or do you get involved early? And they just need attorneys, and I think once the attorneys
how many of them have attorneys right now?
I'm not for sure. I had a meeting last night with the players and with the family, showing them the GoFundMe page and what it was for. And some do. I don't know the exact count. I know Mr. Vito and at least 2 others do not have attorneys. And they're facing 20 years. They're facing 10 to 20 years in prison.
The school does not pay for an attorney, right? They have to do that on their own.
Correct. Yeah, my understanding is, and it has in the timeline of events, that the University of Kentucky suspended the players from the March 6th incident, and then I believe it was in June. I don't have all this information. I'm getting it from the family.
Yeah, no, we've gone over all that. That's all been out there. Let me ask you a question about you said words were exchanged. There have been some sort of speculation that racial slurs were thrown at the players. Do you believe that's the case?
I do.
And what do you base that on?
Just interviewing or having conversations with the players, and it just makes sense. I mean, the way the story evolves, and there's other stuff. Some of the families want to get their stories out, and I've encouraged them to, I can put a statement on this GoFundMe page by them, and I think some of them will do it. One of the players involved in this, his only involvement was driving by the house.
You said yesterday that they picked out 20 players initially on the roster as identifying as being there. Does that mean that? How did we end up with these 6? I mean, were any players sort of initially? I guess there were at least 14 players initially tabbed as doing it that weren't there.
Yeah, that I don't know, and that's some of the stuff. Just it doesn't make sense. So in let's see, I believe it was March. Trying to think of the day here. Yeah, in April. I'm sorry, in April there were search warrants done on 12 of the football players' phones.
Oh wow! So they actually searched 12 football players' phones, and only 6 were there. That's actually kind of amazing. Well, let me ask you this: the fraternity guys did interviews with WDRB, and in those interviews, they gave a different set side of the story. They basically thought players came in, were hitting people, including they alleged that they hit women. Do you believe that took place?
At which point, you said a lot of things there. I think a fraternity party happened. I think some players showed up. I think there were words exchanged as they were leaving. I think an altercation took place. Who was hit, when they were hit, I can only imagine that it was a mess.
Do you think, in your experience, these guys would have been charged if not for the gun allegation?
I think that plays a role in it. Obviously, one of the main elements of a burglary first is being armed with a deadly weapon. And then watching media reports, where they referred to this as a home invasion and they refer to it as a drive-by. I mean, it's just, it started bothering me. And then, when I talked to Mr. Tisdale, and I had the same gut instinct that he was telling the truth, we had to figure out how do we get out in front of this and show that he is telling the truth. And, he agreed to take a polygraph. He took one and he passed it. And,
so I guess I'll summarize like this. You believe that do you believe all 6 were wrongly charged?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, you have a GoFundMe. Give the name of it again in case people want to go to it. Yeah.
So it's on the GoFundMe platform, and it's Defense Fund for 6 innocent UK football players.
Okay. All right. Well, Denny, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
All right.
Bye-bye.